Hello everybody, and welcome back to the Son of the Morning Comics channel. And today we're going to review Killadelphia number 5 by Rodney Barnes. It's a series I've been really liking since issue 1. I believe that there's 6 issues in the first arc of this ongoing series. Of course, don't know when we'll be able to get our hands on issue number 6, but I can tell you that issue number 5, the story keeps getting better. Now, at the end of issue number 4, basically what was happening is that the head vampire, who is former President John Adams, they've decided to finally attack Philadelphia and, sort of start their program of changing the country in their own image. And then, of course, on the other side, you have Jimmy Sangster Sr., who is a vampire but hasn't yet given into the bloodlust. His son, Jimmy Sangster Jr., I guess she's a coroner friend, Josie, and SeeSaw, who is one of Adam's main minions, who has sort of flew the coop, I suppose you could say. So let's get into it here. So we just see some of the carnage that was left in the morning after the big purge, I suppose you could say. Now, this here is interesting here. This is the little girl who was a very vicious little vampire in some of the previous issues. And this is her sister putting up a missing sign for her, hoping that she'll be able to find her. And so here we can see that, the gods have smiled on favorably on Adams, as the first night has gone really well for them. They won the night. Things didn't go too well. Victory was pure and sweet, as they say. Now, over here what you have is your typical sort of police denial of what's actually going on. Nobody's gonna want to say that there's a group of vampires attacking Philadelphia. But so what they do say is that they feel that it was a terrorist attack. Of course, the press is having none of it. That does a terrorist cell suck the blood out of a third of a city? And so nobody's buying it. And so the police chief then walks off, and he is met by Jimmy Jr. and Josie, and they want to talk to him. Really cool shot here. I really like the art. This is James Sangster Sr. in his, I guess, crypt, I suppose, and he's sort of just pondering. He doesn't sleep. He thinks about the angels above and the demons below, and he's in constant turmoil within himself. His body's a prison, and his soul is its only inmate. Real good stuff. I really like the writing. Really, it really does the job well. Now, so here we see SeeSaw again, and he's sort of telling his story about how he encountered Adams, how he became a vampire. So basically, he's was leading an inconsequential life. His grandmother had prayed that some way he would become to have a good life. Unfortunately, in his mind, he hadn't gotten there, and that's when he met President Adams, or former President Adams, and then Adams, of course, gives him the power of immortality through turning him into a vampire. And so, that was so we know that he did become a vampire willingly. And so after he's become a vampire, Adams sort of starts to explain to them that there's sort of 3 steps that he's going to have to go through. And that the first one is being mindless, then searching, and then becoming enlightened. And that Adams feels that he, SeeSaw, Tevin Tompkins, his real name, has the ability to walk amongst the best of them. And SeeSaw notes, instantly his anxiety and his depression were gone. And Adams gives him a very important task. So he gives him this book. Now, if you saw the reviews that I did previously, or if you've read this series, you'll see that when Adams was turned in the Caribbean, he was given a book that was said to have untold powers if he could unlock the secrets of it. And this was something that needed to be hidden from his wife Abigail, because as we found out in one of the previous issues, although they are still a husband and wife, they lead very different lives and have very different goals for things, and he doesn't want her getting that power. But he told him, never look at the book, never open the book, just hide it, hold on to it. So here we flip back over to the scene where they are explaining to the police chief that basically, yeah, it's vampires, and they can prove it, and they're gonna show him. Over here we see what appears to be Abigail Adams, I think, waking up beside the little girl vicious vampire, and she says she has to go meet with John. She has seen this sign. She wants to go and see her family, which is actually quite interesting, but we'll get there. But now this is continuing here with SeeSaw explaining that he didn't listen to Adams, that he opened the book anyway, started playing around with it, couldn't decipher what anything meant, but you know, he still tried. He knew that this was a very old book that was put together over very many years, that like the universe was a school, and he'd been studying for 10 years before he figured out that he needed to stop trying to figure out the book and how to decipher the book and let the book figure him out. And then once he did that, he was able to unlock the power from those books. So he's explaining all of this to Sangster Sr. And, you know, just a really interesting, really good piece of writing there, especially sort of giving that origin for SeeSaw. I really like that a lot. Now in the next scene here, our little psychotic vampire girl does come to see her sister, at which point we learn something quite interesting. We actually learn that it was SeeSaw, well, that they were both, that she was a vampire, and that SeeSaw, with his powers that he has through the book he has, was able to turn her back into a human. She really doesn't like it. She wants her sister to come back to being a vampire because she doesn't want her to die like her parents. She doesn't want her to leave her like her parents left her. But the sister explains that the parents didn't leave her, that they were sold. They were sold into slavery, and you know, she was very young at the time, so she probably doesn't remember it as well, but that after the parents were sold, they ended up in the care of Abigail and John Adams, and that would be when they were turned into vampires. So I think that was very, very interesting. They have a little argument about it. She's very sad that, you know, she just wants her sister back. they both just want their sister back. That's what I think is really interesting about all of this. That, you know, they're both heartbroken because they both want to have a life with their sister, but they both want to have different kinds of lives with their sisters. Very good writing, and the art that goes along with it is fantastic. Facial expressions in this book are great throughout. It doesn't matter if we're talking about Sangster Sr. or if we're talking about SeeSaw or Sangster Jr., Josie, everybody. You can see what they're feeling, and that's a very important thing, especially in a story like this. So we'll flip the page over here, and so now it's time to sort of start executing the plan. So they bring the police chief in to see Jimmy Sangster Sr., where he is obviously shocked to see a dead man who is alive, and then of course he sees Tompkins, SeeSaw, who's been missing and they've been looking for years, and you know, he's a little bit worried, but Sangster Jr. calms him down, explains the situation, basically explains that you know, if they don't do something about this tonight, Philly is toast, and then probably the rest of America. And so basically what the plan is going to be is that SeeSaw, being as resourceful as he is showing himself to be, had made a map of all of the biggest nests where the vampires sleep during the day, and that if they go around the city and burn them all down, you could take out more than half the vampires in one shot. And that as that's happening, SeeSaw and Sangster will go after Adams and kill him. And if they can manage to kill Adams, it's going to cause all of the rest of the vampires to just fly into disarray and not know what to do. So, you know, they under normal circumstances, this isn't something that a police chief would agree to, but he realizes there's not much else he can do, and wants to know what kind of weapons will kill these vampires, and the answer is flamethrowers. And so let's get to it. He doesn't want to waste any more time. There is a conversation here between father and son. We'll get to that a little bit more in a bit. But first, our young vicious vampire is still very upset from the encounter with her sister. She sees a whole bunch of cops gathered together, and she swoops down and absolutely ravages them. There's one that is running away, and she thinks about, you know, oh, maybe I'll be merciful. But she decides instead not to and rips his head off. So she is definitely becoming a very cool character in this story. And so, like I said, there is a conversation between the two, and, you know, Sangster Sr. it's kind of interesting. Junior says, "You're looking at me funny," and like he says, well, you know, when you're hungry, you look at something and sometimes all you see is food. He's saying, I'm looking at you and all I see is a big bowl of tomato soup, and he loves tomato soup. So, like, it's just an interesting, like, he's fighting the vampire inside him, and I think that's really cool. And, you know, they're basically telling each other that the junior is telling him that he's doing this because he knows it's the right thing, and that he gets that quality from his dad, and that his dad's response is, perhaps you're just a good man. And at the end here, we have SeeSaw and Sangster Jr., who are, of course, going to try to deal with Adams, and unfortunately they're greeted by Adams' group of henchmen, who remarks to SeeSaw that he thinks that they need to have a talk about patriotism. It calls him a Benedict Arnold. And that's the end of issue number 5. And of course, some cool little sketches there. And then we get a shot there of issue number 6. Set for April 2020. Fingers crossed. Let's hope that things are going to come out on time, that the delays won't last for more than a week or 2 or 3, or who knows what we're waiting for. But all I can say is I can't wait to read issue number 6 of Killadelphia. And I gotta say, as just an extra cool little thing, how cool is it that we have a Neal Adams variant cover here? I didn't ask for it. I guess the comic shop guy just knew that I would want it. Didn't know that it was out there. When I first saw it, I was like, oh, this isn't the cover I thought I was getting. And I got home and I looked at it. I was like, oh, cool. So no complaints about that. At any rate, if you like this content, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, leave some comments, hit that notification bell. If you want to visit me over on the Twitters, the handle is @sonofthemorning7, and we'll talk to you when we do the next video.